Whenever you're dealing with discriminant questions, a lot of the times the exam questions will involve these things called quadratic inequalities, and what they look like is this. You'll have something like this written in front of you. Like, it'll be some sort of question that leads to this stage, and you have to know how to solve this. So the way you solve this is make sure you know that for a question like this, the first step you will do it is take everything on the left-hand side, right-hand side, and then merge it so that right-hand side is equal to 0. So what we did over here is, for this type of question, without needing to be told, you move the x squared to the other side to make it 2x squared minus x squared to get x squared, 3x, still plus 3x, plus 3, minus 1, which is going to be plus 2. Once you get it to a quadratic less than equal to 0 stage, all you have to do is find the numbers that factorize it. You can either factorize this off the top of your head, or you could use a calculator to solve it. You'll find that x is equal to -1 or x is equal to -2 on the calculator if you use the fx901 to solve it, and that means x plus 1 equals to 0, x plus 2 equals 0. Remember the step? It just means these two are the things you put inside the brackets over there. This is kind of like a shortcut to factorizing if you didn't know how to do it straight up. Now, so you've turned this into this. It always happens. You always take the quadratic, make it less than equal to 0. So you see what we did over here, move that to that side. It becomes a quadratic less than equal to 0. This always happens for this type of question. You just have to factorize it, and all you have to do is you draw a number line. Make sure you do this. So in real time, draw a number line. And what you do on the number line is, you're not confused about why if -2 is over here, -1 better to be to the right of it, because -1 is bigger than -2. Number lines show from the smallest to largest. So my point is, why do we care about -1, -2? Because these are the actual numbers that make it equal to 0. These were the numbers that make it equal to 0. So you draw the boundaries for -2, -1. You indicate the 3 regions. And what it means is this. You should have something that looks like this. -2, -1, just like this. You have regions. What you're really doing over here is, think about the definition of this question. You're really trying to find what? You're trying to find, how do I describe what number can go over here to replace these x's? Like, what can I replace, because these are two x values. They're both the same value. What can I replace this as? Like, how do I describe all the possible numbers I can replace the x with, so that if I were to put it into x plus 1 and put it into x plus 2, those two multiplied together will give me something that it's indeed less than equal to 0. That's all you're really doing over here. So the best way to do this is, once you have these regions, the -2, -1, these regions, it just means choose any number. Choose any number less than -2 and plug it into this. Plug it into this x plus 1, bracket x plus 2. Plug it into that. Anything less than 2. Easiest one, say -3. -3 plus 1 is -2. -3 plus 2 is -1. So that's going to give you positive 3, isn't it? -2 times -1. See how that works? Excuse me, it's going to be positive 2. You're not confused about why it's positive 2 right now, if you were to replace the x with -3 in this expression. If you were to replace the x with -3, that means x plus 1, which is -3 plus 1 now, becoming -2, is multiplied with -3 plus 2, which is -1, -2 times -1, which is just equal to 2. Because you found a positive number, when you substitute an example of a number less than -2 into here, it means this is going to be positive. You label it as positive. And you see what you do over here? Pick any number bigger than -1. Any number. Easiest one you can do is 0. 0, replace the x over here. 0 plus 1, 0 plus 2, times together is 2. That's also positive. Just because you picked one example that's positive, just because you only found one example that's positive so far, it's proof that the entire region to the right of this is positive. So you just label that as positive. And then by default, of course, the middle is going to be negative. And if you ever think about this, so this is where we have this. What are we trying to find? We're trying to find, literally, describe what this letter is allowed to be, so that this entire answer is going to be negative. What's the negative region? Here. How do you describe all the... This basically means, okay, this diagram just means all the numbers that are less than -2 over here are going to make it positive. All the numbers bigger than -1 will make it positive. So anything between -2 and -1 will indeed make it negative. What do we want? We want to make sure this whole answer... How do we make this whole answer negative? Because you see this is less than equal to 0, isn't it? You can interpret that, right? So how do you write down all the numbers that are less than equal to 1 and bigger than equal to -2? There's no other way other than this, isn't it? -2 greater than equal to... less than equal to -1. Any confusion how that's why we write this particular region that way? No confusion whatsoever. Just like something like this, you understand the first step is always to turn it into a quadratic. So move that to the other side, move that to the other side. That's where you get x squared minus 9, 3x squared minus 2x squared, x squareds, minus 8 minus 1, because plus 1 to the other side becomes minus 1. So you have this particular quadratic expression. You identify this is still a quadratic. You can either factorize that off the top of your head, or you could just use a calculator. You realize that x is going to be equal to -3 or positive 3, and that just means x plus 3, x minus 3. That's where you got the brackets. Remember the rule? We just find the values and make it equal to 0. It's very easy when you write it this way, -3 and 3. So we've got -3 and 3, and we just investigate the regions. Anything between -3 and 3 is going to be, best example, between here, you can substitute into here, because you always just got to pick any example of a number between this region, substitute into this, to see what you get. Pick 0, for example. 0 indeed is between -3 and 3, and 0 is always easy to evaluate over here, isn't it? Because plug 0 and you just get 3, plug 0 and you get -3. Those two multiply together because there's two brackets, right? I'm just explaining to you in real time, this is what you're interpreting over here. You get 0 plus 3 times 0 minus 3, which is -9. -9, is that less than or equal to 0? Oh, yes it is. That's where you get negative. Anything bigger than 3 plugged into there. If this is negative by default, by the way, it's like a rule for quadratics. This is going to be positive. This is going to be positive. And that's where you get the answer. Because what you're trying to find? You're trying to find all the numbers that replace the x over there. How do you describe all the numbers that could replace this to make the whole thing negative? It's pretty obvious that this one, isn't it? There's no confusion. How do you describe all the numbers between -3 and 3? You saw the equal symbol also over there, right? That's why it's greater than or equal to -3, less than or equal to 3. Squared to the other side, you get x squared plus x plus 1 to the side minus 6. So no confusion on why you have this as the first starting line. And then you know where to go from here. Factorization. Write down the numbers that make it equal to 0. So 2, -3. Yeah? So you have -3 and then 2. -3 and then 2. Just like this. And then you've got to pick a number example, any number between here and here. Substitute it into this to replace the x. Pick 0, for example. So you have 0 minus 2 and 0 plus 3, which is -6. -6. Is that bigger than or equal to 0? No, it's negative. Which means these two must be positive. And what are you looking for? You're looking for all the answers that replace the x over here to make it positive. And that's where you have these two. How do you describe all the numbers less than -3? X less than or equal to -3. Why do we use negative? Excuse me, why do we use equal to instead of this? Because we see over here it's also an equal symbol. Does it make sense? Okay. Last one. No confusions. This to the side becomes x squared. To the side becomes minus 5x. To the side becomes plus 6. Factorization. And obviously pick any example between 2 and 3. Pick any example less than 2. We'll probably start off with the left hand side here first. Pick 0, for example. Pick 0 into there. 0 minus 2, 0 minus 3 times together is positive. If this is positive, then it means this must be positive and this must be negative. Okay? And what are we trying to find? We're trying to find positive. So it's this region and this region. How do we find less than 2, bigger than 3? X less than or equal to 2, x bigger than or equal to 3.